you and I talked about this game, and, we have been, I don't want to say staunch defenders of Geno per se, but I think we've both tried to be very rational and measured when it comes to the Seahawks season, because we were like, you know what, entering last season, we both thought that this team would really, really struggle, and they came out and surprised us. So when we talk about Geno, when we talk about this offense, let's be a little more measured. And yet, leaving this game where Geno Smith had the third lowest passer rating of any quarterback over the weekend, and where the offense was abysmal on third down, going just 1 of 12, you kind of entered our own version of Tell the Truth Monday, where you came away with a thought that shocked me.
Yeah, Drew has to be in the conversation now. I'm not saying Drew takes over. I'm not saying you go into the meeting room and it's Geno or Drew, but you give him more reps now. You do something to push Geno to that place that he was a year ago when he was competing for that job. Now, it's not all on Geno, right? But Drew needs to be in the conversation, just like Charbonnet needs to be in the conversation, just like anybody in that offensive line needs to be in the conversation. When you lose 37-3, anything's up for grabs at this point. Fundamentally, you don't change who you are, but you got to switch something up. And Geno, with the pass, he has 8 turnovers in the past 4 games. He was pressured 49% of the time. In the 3 losses that they've had, he's completing 54% of his passes for 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. It's a performance-based business, right? So Drew needs to be in the conversation at this point. I'm not one of the people saying bench Geno, but I like the way Geno operates when he feels like his back is against the wall and he has to compete for something. So, yes, Drew needs to be in that conversation. Give him more reps than you normally would during the week, and allow him to prepare as if he is a starter. I'm sure he does anyway. That's what backup quarterbacks do. But it's hard to look at the numbers and say everything is okay. The offensive line has to protect. I'm going to talk about what this Ravens defense did. They were active. I'm looking at this Ravens defense, and I was really impressed with the game plan and how they executed. Receivers have to get open. I'm looking at the way the receivers are running the routes. We're on different pages. It's not syncing up, and then decision-making by Geno. It's a collective effort, but when your offense is struggling the way that it has been, you got to look at the guy holding the rock and say, what can we do to get him back to what he used to be? I think you introduce Drew and say, look, man, you're in the competition.
That guy holding the rock, Geno, is a favorite of Pete Carroll's. I mean, Pete has been staunchly supportive of Geno, even before Geno was signed with the Seahawks, when he was still a free agent. And then, obviously, when he came here, before he was named the starter, Pete Carroll was clearly in support of him. So maybe it shouldn't be surprising that Pete Carroll, after the game, was asked a question about, like, hey, what was up with Geno's day? And you could tell that Pete Carroll was sensing the conversation would go into finger pointing at Geno, and immediately he tried to shut it down.
I don't think this is about Geno at all. That's what I think this is about. Our football team did not answer the bell here. We couldn't get it done, and we came in here to slug it out, and they did a better job than we did. It was all of us. When they're rushing the passer, that's not Geno. This is not a one-guy deal here.
So this is not a one-guy deal here. And I just want to be clear.
Facts.
You're not saying this is a one-guy deal here. In fact, the entirety of our first hour of today's show is going to be breaking down some of the different facets that went wrong with this game in particular. But again, you pointed to those numbers. 6 interceptions, 8 total turnovers in 4 games for Geno. I think that, Bump, the way I feel about it is this, that I have an understanding that it is a natural thing that people do when they point to a backup or to an just unexplored option, and they say, what if that's better? We do that with everything in our lives. What if that's better? Like, I haven't tried that. What if that's better for me, right? Like, this is exactly how people feel about Drew. Drew, he's a gunslinger. He's fun. Nice kid. What if that's better?
Yeah.
And I think it's
natural.
this natural thing that people do. So I guess where my mind automatically goes, because I typically defer to coaches or former players, is like, well, if Drew was better, he'd be out there, right? Like, that's what I naturally think. Why, for you, is it time to have Drew Lock be part of the conversation?
Because I put on the coach's hat, right? And I'm always thinking, when I'm coaching kids and they're not performing the way they used to, what can I do to help this dude? All right, what mentality does he need to be in when he performs at his best? From what I know of Geno, he performs his best when his back is against the wall, when no one believes in him, when someone's coming for his job. That's what we saw last year. Last year, he wins the job. We're talking about Jimmy. We're talking about Baker. We're talking about Drew. He goes out there, he wins the job, and he has his chip on his shoulder the whole season. Now, this year, he knows the job is his, and something isn't clicking. Again, it's not just him. that line has to do better. I think the play calling can be tweaked a little bit. Everybody is in VMAC right now looking in the mirror and saying, what can I do? But obviously the one that's going to stick out, or the thing that sticks out the most, is the quarterback play. So as a coach, I'm like, okay, I got to get Geno back to the mentality that he used to have. And you know what? When you're in VMAC and Pete Carroll's talking to him, who knows? He might think that he's already there. All right. I'm outside looking in and saying, how can I mix things up? And I think you do that by indirectly. You're not even going into these meetings and telling Geno that, hey, Drew's on your butt right now. No, what you're doing is you're giving him a bit more snaps. You're having different conversations. You know, you change the relationship a little bit so Geno sees and feels that, all right, I got to do better. I got to step it up, or someone's going to take my job. Here's the thing, too, man. It's that at all the other positions, no one's taking DK's job. No one's taking Lockett job. No one's taking Jason's job. On the offensive line, it's wide open. We've already seen a whole bunch of rotation there. At the running back position, you know Ken Walker's going to run the rock, a sprinkle of Zach Charbonnet. Unfortunately, the quarterback spot for this team is the only position where you're like, I don't know. We haven't seen the other guy. What? Like you said, that could be better over there.
What if it's better for me?
Exactly. Now, I don't think it's going to be better.
Yeah.
I'm not saying put Drew in. I'm not saying bench Geno. I'm not saying none of that. All I'm saying is mentally, what can you do to tap in to a place that Geno hasn't been in a while? But you got to make sure everything else around him is working as well, including some play calling stuff that kind of had me scratching my head a bit.